This week we're going to be looking at functions, and we are going to build upon the classes, this code basically that they started with from the example. And just to be clear, what it's asking you to do is kind of modify this example to your customized whatever you want to make up. This is a nice thing in that you have a bunch of code to start from. It's less rigorous than starting from scratch. It's tough because you don't necessarily have a vision of what it's supposed to be. So I want to start here by let's just talking about the type of thing that you needed to do. Now I've just opened up this code here, just straight from the download. I downloaded, opened it up, and you have to be careful with this because in Visual Studio it may or may not actually allow you to run it right away based off of how you open it. For me, it's going to try to attach it to a process. So I just want to be clear about this, that when you open up the code, you'd probably need to add it to a project in order to get it to start working. So I'm going to go through and create a new, computer's a little bit slow here, project. And I can name it whatever I want. There's a naming standard it asks for you to do. Again, my computer's very slow here. There's a naming standard it asks you to do for how you're going to name it. So I'm going to create basically a Windows console application, and yours is something like your name and the week and whatnot. It matters a little bit less because you're not actually turning in the project itself. You're just turning in images of the project. So I'm just going to do Tony Phase 2 as the name of a project. So with that, it does open up a brand new project. It's misplaced my code inside of there, but I did download it, so it should be in my download folder. So I'm going to go grab it from there. And so what I'm going to do in my download folder is open up that code. I'm just going to copy this code, do a Control A to copy it all, and then I'm going to paste it over the top of this code here. The code you might notice still is missing some of the things we put in last week. So like include, so here, actually I'm just gonna keep this here. So I'm gonna paste underneath there. So you have to have your standard, and it probably needs to have string inside of here as well. Pound include string. So that might be everything we need. So don't forget about that. We need to have the standard header that's going to be included on there. And then let's see if we can run this code. That's really the first thing I want you to get set up, is make sure your code is up and running. So yes, I want to build that. You can click that button to have it not have that pop up every time. But now I have the code, hopefully, so it will run. So again, your first task should be to get your code into Visual Studio or the tool of your choice if you're using something else, and get it to compile and get it to run. And it should run okay as it stands. Now, again, for whatever reason, my computer is less than responsive right now on these new tasks. And it's probably had nothing to do with Visual Studio itself. It's probably something else that's taking up the space. But here is the prompt as it comes up. By the way, I don't mind the fact it's taking up some time on my computer. It's realistic. I don't want it to be a perfect, like everything's instantaneous, because then if yours takes a few seconds, you understand, hey, your computer's working on something, as opposed to just hanging. So this is much like the app we had before. Enter your name, and then you pick something from the list. But now when you pick something from the list, I'll pick two. It displayed the email address. It did something. Or hit one, it displays the address, or I hit 3, it's displaying, and so it's doing different things. Now, the way it's doing this is it's coming from the case here where it used to just print this out, and now it's calling this function. View address, view email, vacation taken. Oh yeah, it actually asked for vacation days in the third one. I missed that. Sorry. But it's now calling these functions over here to do something within the application. So what your challenge is whatever you have reconfigured these methods to be. You could be buying pizza, buying burgers, buying salad. Come up with something to call a function with. Now, I don't really care what the function does. I just want to see a function called and execute something in the function. So the first task I want you to do before I'm going to go change any code here is just to sit down and map out, maybe create a mock-up of it, that when you hit the run button here, what's supposed to happen in your display. So that way you have a mental model, you have a plan for I'm going to put in a name here, and when I hit whatever button, that's an invalid one, something's going to pop up. And so you're going to have each of these steps mapped out so you know what happens. So if I pick buy a pizza, the next thing it's going to do is ask me, do you want pepperoni, sausage, or cheese? Or maybe it's just going to print something out in some of these cases. They don't all have to be super complex. I'd ask that you try and challenge yourself in some different way. Use some of the code items we're asking about, but don't get stuck on that. Get something working and turn that in, and then let's work through the chat, through questions on getting something more complex. And we'll go show some examples here in the next video, but I want you to start, just get it running, and then imagine a plan for what it's going to look like.